the Oregon woods. Deep, dark, ancient. We were miles from anywhere. Just me, Mark, and Sarah. A simple camping trip, or so we thought. The fire crackled, stars blazed above, a sense of peace. But nature always has surprises. Sometimes they are deadly. This night, the surprise wasn't from any known predator. It came from somewhere else entirely. A place we couldn't imagine. A place we would soon visit, against our will. This peace was a fragile thing, about to be shattered. Then the sound began. It started low, a faint hum, almost imperceptible, like distant machinery. But there was no machinery out here, just trees. And us. The hum grew. It vibrated through the ground. I felt it in my boots, then in my chest. It was a physical presence, unnatural. The forest animals fell silent. No crickets, no rustling in the undergrowth, just that pervasive, growing hum. An unease started to creep into our camp, a primal instinct. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The air itself felt charged, expectant. Suddenly a light. Not the warm glow of our campfire, not the distant lights of a town. This was different. It pulsed softly, a strange, ethereal color. Blue, maybe green. It was hard to tell. It came from deep within the trees, behind a thick curtain of firs. It wasn't moving like a searchlight. It was just there, growing stronger. The hum seemed to be connected to it. My heart began to pound. Curiosity is a powerful force, but fear is older, stronger. This fear whispered of the unknown. We should have stayed put. We should have packed up, run, but we didn't. We were drawn towards it, like moths to a flame, a terrible, irresistible flame. The air grew colder. A metallic taste filled my mouth, like sucking on an old coin. The hum was louder now, clearly directional, coming from the source of that strange light. Mark looked at me, his eyes wide. Sarah shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. We didn't speak. Words were useless. We moved as one, towards the beckoning, terrifying unknown. Our fate was sealed. We pushed through the dense undergrowth. Branches scratched at our faces. The forest floor was uneven, treacherous, but we kept moving. The light ahead intensified. It was becoming blinding. We had to shield our eyes. The hum escalated. It was no longer just a sound. It was a pressure, a force, pushing against our eardrums, vibrating through our bones. Then we broke through the tree line, into a small clearing, and we saw it. It was above us, dominating the night sky. Mark was the first to speak, or rather, gasp. He pointed upwards. His hand trembled. His face, usually ruddy, was a sickly pale in the unearthly glow. Sarah let out a choked cry. I just stared. My mind struggled to comprehend. The object, it was massive, impossibly large. It hung silently in the air. Apart from that all-consuming hum, it blotted out the stars, a huge dark shape against the inky blackness. This was no aircraft I had ever seen, not from any country, not from this world. Its shape was hard to define. It seemed to shift, to ripple. Or maybe our eyes, our minds couldn't process what we were seeing. The edges were indistinct, yet it had a definite structure, a terrifying presence. The sheer scale of it was overwhelming. We were ants beneath a boot, tiny, insignificant, exposed. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The light from it pinned us to the ground. We were caught, trapped by something beyond all understanding. My survival instinct screamed. The emotions hit me then, a tidal wave. There was awe, a sliver of it, the sheer spectacle. But it was drowned by terror, pure, undiluted terror. The kind that freezes your blood, that makes your limbs heavy. We were not observers here. We were targets, prey. I knew it with a certainty that chilled me to the core. This was not a benign encounter. This was hostile. This was the beginning of something dreadful. The night had torn open, revealing a horror we could never have imagined. From the belly of the craft, a beam of light erupted. It was different from the general, pervasive glow. This was focused, intense. It shot downwards, striking the forest floor around us. The ground lit up in an alien bluish-white hue. Every pebble, every blade of grass stood out in stark relief. Dust motes danced in the beam, suspended. It was strangely beautiful and utterly terrifying. The hum changed pitch. It became higher, more insistent. A silent command. Then the feeling, weightlessness. My boots lifted from the earth, just an inch at first, then more. I wasn't jumping. I wasn't climbing. I was simply rising, pulled upwards by an invisible force. I kicked out. I thrashed. My arms flailed. Useless gestures. There was nothing to fight against, nothing to hold on to. Gravity, that fundamental law, had betrayed me. I was being reeled in, like a fish on a line, slowly, inexorably, towards the dark shape above. I saw Mark and Sarah. They were rising too, just a few feet away. Their faces were masks of terror, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams, lost in the overwhelming throb of the hum. I tried to reach for Sarah, tried to shout Mark's name. My arms felt heavy, unresponsive. My voice caught in my throat. We were separate, isolated in our individual ascent into nightmare. Helpless puppets dancing on unseen strings. The forest floor receded below. The ascent quickened. The trees, moments ago towering giants, shrank beneath us, became a dark, textured carpet. The cold night air rushed past my face, stinging my eyes. I looked up, towards the underside of the craft. It was vast. A landscape of unknown metal and strange structures. An opening appeared, a dark maw, like the mouth of some colossal beast, waiting to swallow us whole. There was no turning back now. We were committed. We were being taken. The transition was abrupt. One moment, I was in the cold night air, rising, the wind screaming past. The next, a sharp jolt, a sense of impact, but not painful, more like a sudden stop. Then nothing, blackness, absolute and complete. My senses shut down. Consciousness, that fragile tether to reality, slipped away. I plunged into a void. No thoughts, no feelings, just an empty, silent darkness. It was a mercy, perhaps. A brief respite before the true horror began. I woke slowly, dragged back from the abyss. Disorientation was total. My head throbbed, a dull, persistent ache. I was lying on something hard and cold, unyieldingly cold. Not the soft earth of the forest. This was smooth, metallic. A faint, sterile scent filled my nostrils, tinged with that same metallic tang from the woods, only much stronger now. I was chilled to the bone, shivering uncontrollably. My clothes felt damp, my body ached as if I'd been pummeled. My eyes struggled to focus. The light was dim, indirect, pulsing faintly from the walls themselves. Walls that curved, seamlessly, no sharp corners, no angles. Everything was smooth, sterile, alien. And the silence, it was profound. The deafening hum from outside was gone, replaced by a faint, high-pitched whine, barely audible, but it prickled at the edges of my hearing, a sound that promised nothing good. My heart began to race. Panic started to bloom in my chest, a cold flower of dread. Where was I? What was this place? And more importantly, where were Mark and Sarah? I tried to call out their names. My throat was dry, raw. Only a hoarse croak emerged. I tried to sit up, to look around, but my body felt heavy, unresponsive. A strange pressure pinned me down, across my chest, my arms, my legs. I was restrained, helpless. The full weight of my situation crashed down on me. The restraints were not ropes or straps. They were smooth, cool bands. Almost part of the table I lay on. They held me fast, across my chest, my biceps, my thighs, not painfully tight, but utterly unyielding. I strained against them. My muscles screamed in protest. It was futile. Every movement was restricted. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild bird trapped in a cage, trying to beat its way out. But there was no escape from this cold metal tomb. I scanned the room as much as the restraints allowed. It was circular, or perhaps oval, difficult to tell with the curved walls. The walls themselves seemed to be the source of light, a faint internal luminescence, pulsing softly, no windows, no visible doors, just the endless, smooth, cold metal. Everywhere I looked, I was completely alone, a specimen on a slab, in an alien laboratory. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. My breathing became shallow, rapid. The sounds were subtle, but terrifying in their implications. The faint, high-pitched whine persisted. But beneath it, other noises, faint clicks, soft whirring sounds, like delicate machinery operating nearby, or something else, something moving, just out of sight. My senses were stretched to their limit. Every nerve ending screamed a warning. The air was cold, thin, each breath was an effort. It felt like being at high altitude, but I knew I was far from any mountain peak. The overwhelming feeling was one of utter loss of control. This was the worst part. More than the fear, more than the unknown. I was stripped of everything, my strength, my skills, my ability to fight or flee, my very will, reduced to a trembling, helpless subject, powerless, vulnerable. Tears welled in my eyes, hot and stinging in the cold air. They traced burning paths down my temples. They tasted of salt and pure, unadulterated terror. I was at their mercy, and I suspected they had none. A section of the curved wall in front of me shimmered, like heat haze on a summer road. Then it grew translucent. I could see shapes moving behind it, vague at first, then resolving into figures, tall, slender. Their proportions were wrong, not human, My breath hitched in my throat. My heart felt like it would explode. This was it, the moment of confrontation. They were coming. The architects of this nightmare were about to reveal themselves. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, then forced them open. I had to see. They entered the room, 2 of them. They didn't walk through a door. They seemed to glide through the now transparent section of wall. Their movements were fluid, graceful, yet utterly alien, unsettling. They were taller than any human I knew, their limbs long and thin. Their heads were large, pear-shaped, dominating their slender bodies, and their eyes, huge, black, almond-shaped orbs. They seemed to absorb all light, reflecting nothing. No pupils, no irises, just deep, fathomless pools. They had no discernible mouths or noses. They communicated without sound. I felt a pressure in my mind, a sense of their cold, detached thoughts. The examination began. There was no preamble, no attempt at communication I could understand, just a cold, clinical efficiency. They moved around me. Their touch was light, cool. Their skin, where it brushed mine, felt smooth, almost like polished stone. They used instruments, long, thin, metallic tools. They emerged from panels in the wall or from their own strange garments, prodding, scanning, collecting. There was no overt aggression, no malice in their actions. But there was no compassion either, just a detached, scientific curiosity. I felt like an insect under a giant microscope, a thing to be studied. The pain came in sharp bursts, a sudden burning sensation on my arm, a sharp prick on my leg, a dull ache deep inside my head as one of them held a device close to my temple. I tried to scream, to cry out, but no sound came. My throat was paralyzed. Or perhaps they simply didn't allow it. They took samples, a small piece of skin, painlessly shaved from my forearm, strands of my hair, a vial of my blood, drawn with a needle so fine I barely felt the puncture, only the cold emptiness afterwards. I felt every violation, every intrusion, a profound sense of defilement. The terror was a living entity inside me now, clawing, screaming, but silent. The return is a blur, a confusing jumble of sensations. Another period of lost consciousness, I think. Then waking, gasping for air, sprawled on the damp, cold forest floor, the familiar scent of pine needles and wet earth. But it wasn't comforting. It felt tainted. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Birds were starting to sing. The woods looked normal, deceptively peaceful. But I knew nothing was normal anymore. Not for me, not ever again. I found Mark and Sarah a short distance away. They were huddled together, dazed, confused. Their clothes were torn, smeared with dirt, just like mine. They looked up as I approached, their eyes wide with a shared, unspoken horror. They remembered fragments, flashes of the same nightmare. The cold room, the silent figures, the paralyzing fear. We didn't need to speak. The terror was reflected in their eyes. We were alive. We had been returned. But were we whole? Something vital had been taken. Something had been broken. The physical marks were undeniable. Strange, triangular bruises on our arms and legs. Small, circular puncture marks that looked like needle pricks, but healed too quickly, leaving faint scars. Headaches plagued us for weeks, blinding, splitting headaches that no medicine could touch. And the nightmares, vivid, recurring nightmares, replaying the cold metal table, the dark, unblinking eyes. The feeling of utter helplessness. Sleep offered no escape, only a return to the terror. We were branded, inside and out, scars seen and unseen. The world felt different afterwards, sharper, more dangerous. Colors seemed too bright, sounds too loud, grating on our nerves. We developed a constant, nagging feeling of being watched, a paranoia that clung to us like a shroud. The woods, once a place of adventure and escape, now felt menacing. A place where the veil between worlds was thin, easily torn. We were no longer just Mark, Sarah, and me. We had become something else. We were gates, as we later called ourselves. Portals to an experience, a reality that was terrifying and unknown. Changed, forever. We tried to piece it together. What had happened up there? Our memories were fragmented, like a shattered mirror, reflecting distorted pieces of the truth. Some images were burned into our brains with horrifying clarity. The coldness of the table, the size of their eyes, the feeling of being lifted. Other parts were missing entirely, blank spaces, replaced by a dull ache of lost time. We checked our watches. Hours had vanished from that night. Unaccounted for, stolen, leaving gaping holes in our understanding. Talking about it was incredibly difficult. How could we find the words? Who would possibly believe us? The experience was so far outside the realm of normal human existence. Explaining the hum, the light, the ship, the beings, it sounded like the ramblings of madmen. Even to ourselves sometimes, in the harsh light of day, it felt unreal, a shared hallucination. But the bruises, the scars, the persistent fear, those were real. The fear of ridicule, of being dismissed as crazy, was immense. So mostly, we kept silent. We sought medical help, discreetly. The doctors listened, they examined us. They found the bruises, the marks. But they had no explanations, no easy answers. They ran tests, blood work, x-rays, nothing wrong in the way they understood wrong. We got confused looks, sympathetic pats on the shoulder, suggestions of stress, fatigue, perhaps a shared traumatic delusion triggered by something mundane we'd misinterpreted in the woods. This medical dismissal, this lack of validation, only amplified our trauma. We were alone with this impossible, terrifying truth. Our friendship, once so strong, began to fray. We were bound together by this horrific secret. Yet, paradoxically, it also drove us apart. It was hard to look each other in the eye. Each face was a reminder of the terror. The shared experience became a chasm, not a bridge. We couldn't escape it when we were together. And we couldn't process it alone. We drifted, each of us struggling in our own silent, isolated way. The abduction had not only stolen our time and peace of mind, it was stealing our connections too. Listen to me. This isn't just some campfire story. This isn't for your entertainment. This is real. This happened, and it carries a heavy warning. Those deep woods, the wild places, any remote stretch of wilderness, they can hold secrets. Secrets far older than humanity. Things that watch from the deepest darkness. Beings that operate beyond our comprehension, beyond our safe, understood world. What you don't know can, and will, hurt you if you stumble into their domain. So if you find yourself out there, deep in the backcountry, miles from civilization, and you hear a sound that doesn't belong, a strange hum that vibrates deep in your bones, making the hairs on your arms stand up, or if you see a light in the sky or between the trees that defies all logical explanation, a light that seems to call to you, to draw you in with an unnatural curiosity. Don't be brave. Don't be a hero. Don't let curiosity win. Run, turn around, and run as fast as your legs can carry you. Don't stop. Don't look back. Don't try to understand it. Just get away. Put as much distance between yourself and that phenomenon as possible. Because what you don't know, what you can't see clearly, can hurt you in ways you cannot imagine. It can take you, it can probe you, it can change you, fundamentally, irreversibly. The terror is real. The pain is real. The loss is real. We became gates that night. That's what we call ourselves, the few of us who've been through this and found each other. Portals. Living reminders of an experience no human being should ever have to endure. We carry the scars, visible and invisible. Remember our story, remember our warning, and when the darkness falls in the wilderness and that primal fear stirs within you, listen to it. That instinct is ancient. It's there for a reason. It might just be the only thing that saves your life. Don't become another gate.